Genuinely worried as fuck. Israel struck Iran in the past. Not sure why this warrants an emergency stream this late. Well, I'll have you know, the last time that Israel struck Iran, I also did an emergency stream. So I am consistent, if nothing else. Christ, dude. Oh my God. Me when the streamer shows up at the time the stream is specified to start. That's you having a heart attack. Is it too dark in here? It's fine. It's late. I was gonna go to bed. I've been going to bed early lately. What happened? War. Oh, you know what happened? Here, we'll let the Associated Press cover it. Look at that. Big, bold text. Israel launches attack on Tehran. Not just their nuclear facilities, quote-unquote, either. They've attacked the capital. They've attacked Tehran and all that beautiful brickwork. And if Israel's struck, that probably means we are going to soon as well. We didn't put all those bombers there for nothing. Is the Ayatollah still alive? Last guy whose safety I'm concerned about, but we'll know when he's not. Israel launched a daylight attack Saturday on Iran's capital with a cloud of smoke rising from the city's downtown. The first apparent strike happened near the offices of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The U.S. is participating, though it was immediately clear the full extent of their involvement, according to a... Wait. Though it was immediately clear the full extent of their involvement, according to a U.S. official? Oh, typo. Though what they mean to say is though it wasn't immediately clear. According to a U.S. official and person familiar with the operation. Wasn't immediately clear if Khamenei had been in his office at the time. It hadn't been seen publicly in days. Nuclear program. More strikes in other cities too. Yeah. Interesting how they attack now that the markets are closed. Yeah, it's so interesting how they do that every single time, you know? It's so interesting. They already said we struck as soon as it happened. Yes, but the degree of participation is not yet known. It's reasonable to assume that we will be participating. What do you mean by markets closed? Stock market's closed. It's not open 24/7. What time is it in Israel? It's morning. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz described the attack as being done, quote, to remove threats. He did not immediately elaborate. Right. Iran witnessed a threat from Khamenei's office. Iran state television reporting the explosion offering a cause. Sirens sounded around Israel at the same time. The Israeli military said it had issued a proactive alert to prepare the public for the possibility of missiles being launched toward the state of Israel. Yeah, well, not like you haven't fucking brought it on yourselves. It's not great. Voss stream at 2 a.m. EST. Something's wrong. Oh, yeah, there it is. Didn't take long, huh? I wonder what the extent of these strikes is going to be. NYT saying U.S. and Israel attacked. Yes, we know that we've participated. As if there's a meaningful difference between those two countries at this point. It's really just a matter of what our goals are. So the state of Israel wants war for a variety of reasons. There's basically no endpoint to it. And unless something is done about Israel, they're never going to stop wanting war. Sorry, I'm very tired. Sort of mentally was in sleepy mode. The question is like what the goal is here, you know, and what the expected long-term outcome is. Destabilizing Iran could lead to a whole lot of shit in the Middle East that even Israel wouldn't be prepared to deal with. Potentially. Airstrikes have been reported in Qom, Isfahan, and Bushehr, per Iranian media. What are their goals? Striking the Ayatollah's office is straightforward. I wouldn't really care that much if he was killed. I mean, obviously it's bad, destabilizing Iran, but like in terms of like sort of moral culpability, he's definitely done a lot of bad stuff. What is the goal here? Isn't this just an extension of the Saudi Arabian regime's goals? Not exactly. It's complicated. Iran's existence stabilizes the Middle East. Why? Because as long as there is one nation state that is unified in its opposition to Western colonial interests, as Iran definitely is, you pacify a whole lot of Islamists in the region who might otherwise take matters into their own hands. Basically, what I'm saying is there's a million jihadists across the Middle East who aren't suicide bombing their local train station because Iran represents, at the very least, a spiritual opposition to the West. Even within Saudi Arabia, within Iraq, whatever else, there are lots and lots of people who do not like us, and the presence of Iran is a stabilizing force. Sunni versus Shia stuff too. Yes, yeah, there's a whole bunch to it. Iran Shia, though, most jihadists oppose that. Yeah, but I'd be willing to bet that even if the average, like, ISIS guy fucking despised Iran, they still probably wouldn't want Iran to be controlled by Israel. So, again, you've got a lesser evil. Okay, listen, for the ISIS guys, it's 100% Hitler, parentheses, America/Israel, versus 99% Hitler, parentheses, the Ayatollah. So it's lesser evil politics all around the world, okay? Do you think Iran would strike Saudi Arabia? No. I mean, they could, but I don't know why they would right now. Israeli government has suspended civilian flights to and from the country in wake of the attack in Iran. That makes sense. Air raid sirens across Israel. Yeah. Special. Thick smoke. National security. Palace. Okay. All right. It's not very much info here. This only just happened. U.S. just striked? Yes, the United States is participating in these strikes. Now, the extent to which that's happening, we don't know yet. I guess I'm interested in knowing what the long-term goal is, you know? The U.S. has brought so much equipment to the region, it seems unlikely that we'd be satisfied with just like, you know, a couple of symbolic strikes. We would want real action here. Otherwise, what was the point of moving so much equipment out? But at the same time, I don't know. Unfortunately, we're dealing with like fundamentally irrational powers here, you know? The United States and Israel are not governed by rational self-interest. At least not entirely. Live UA map, Iran. Yeah, we're really operating in the fog of war here. Last update 10 minutes ago? I know we have more news than that. I don't see any live channels that are doing anything interesting right now. It's too late. News isn't covering it. Midas Touch? What are they saying? We voted for this?
Already been moved to a secure location. The targets of the strikes and recent reports from Israeli media that assassination strikes were carried out do indicate that at least a wave of strikes, or the first wave of strikes, were decapitation strikes. More to come. And that's how it's being described by now Israeli and U.S. officials, that these were decapitation, assassination strikes. It's being called Operation Hand in Hand, U.S. and Israel going it alone together against Iran.
How does that work?
No one
alone
else seems
together?
to be joining this with U.S. and Israel. I've read for you the statement there from the Mossad. And I'll just remind everybody as well, of what Donald Trump said back in June when there were strikes by the United States.
Mercadia Media is on it. Mercadia Media. Mercadia Media.
It was going to happen weeks ago.
Right. It's all independent channels. I'm more interested in like actual news. Hard to get stuff like that off YouTube right now. What if Iran just denies the war and doesn't strike back? You mean what if Israel bombs a population that doesn't fight back? Buddy, that's their home turf. That's their favorite thing in the world. You tell the IDF Iran won't fight back? They're like, holy shit, best case scenario. Shame they're not Arabs. Close enough. Popping the Enforcer on YouTube. Yeah.
Definitely underway. Sources in Iraq from the ground, eyewitnesses are reporting that they are seeing visually and also hearing wide ranges and plethora of missile fire coming from Israel and flying over their skies. So we are definitely seeing a lot more missile strikes taking place.
I feel like I'm watching a baseball game. And flying over to Iran, that's it. It's an Israeli bomb. You know, it's positive
retaliation
energy
against, which would be this area right here. And this is actually a little bit north and east of Karamabad and closer to Iraq. Let me make sure to put the marker down.
Why does this shit happen Friday night? Because the markets are closed. They did it this morning because anytime we want to do something spicy internationally, we do it after the markets are closed, so it doesn't react negatively. We don't want that bump, you know? They want things to stabilize. Sky News, is someone on the ground? Okay, cool. 1 second. I don't know why I keep taking my earbuds out.
Israel. What could Iran do next?
Well, yeah, this is the interesting factor, I think, and it will depend on how effective this first range of strikes are, because Iran will be now trying to work out if it does a major attack onto Israel or wider. Of course, it'll unleash the gods of war. And the last thing Iran wants is to actually have America and Israel conducting a full-scale campaign, because the sort of options that Iran has available, they may not be a military superpower like America, but the one thing they have a lot of is...
it's Chud Central. You shouldn't be surprised.
Last year, waves upon waves of those missiles. One might not get through, 10 might not get through, but if you launch 100 or 500, just a quantity has a quality all of its own. And there's not only attacking Israel, but also attacking US military facilities, LUD. There's a lot of military bases in the region.
Damn, that'd be
and
horrible.
I think they could do that. The other couple of things that they could do is they did a live firing exercise on the...
Me when I love sowing, but I fucking despise reaping. It happens. Someone just started setting off fireworks nearby, and it made me very concerned for a minute, especially since I live in the West Coast. You should tweet that. Tweet that, but add some ellipses and maybe a dramatic pause in the middle. I'm sure it'll go over really well.
Relatively new drone ship, which the Iranians have commissioned, is now in service. And that's been seen sort of operating close-ish to the aircraft carriers. And once again, it can launch...
Close-ish. Al Jazeera English? Non-chuds? Non-chuds? Chudless?
It cannot continue its negotiations. It pulled out of the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty and said its nuclear facilities have been struck in an unprecedented strike. This is have never been seen before, that nuclear processing facilities would be hit by the United States and Israel. So we'll have to wait and see what the Iranians say, but it is very, very likely that they're going to pull out of any negotiations. And you've been hearing the rhetoric from the Iranian hawks as well in the lead up to all of this, saying that they do not trust the United States, saying that this is essentially a cover-up to amass more troops to get ready to hit Iran further. And this will be seen as an existential threat. Now,
what do you think the response from Iran could be? We're in very difficult to predict times. I genuinely don't know. Taking a couple of guesses here, okay? If these are a series of... So, okay, let's think for a second about, like, who's involved and what the factors are, okay? Israel, what do they want? Infinite death. Okay. America, what does it want? Sometimes infinite death, sometimes money, 50-50, flip a coin. What does Trump want? Well, Trump doesn't want war with Iran, because Trump likes the narrative that he's solved war in the Middle East forever, you know? Trump likes wars to be over quickly. He doesn't like war. He likes fixing wars. He likes solving them. He likes winning. But winning, he wants it to happen quickly, right? So it's possible that whatever military engagement we've committed to, it's going to happen for a shorter length of time than the MIC and Israel would like. Israel wants forever war. Maybe Trump's only in for a little bit. They want to do like a quick decapitation strike, see if it works. Maybe Ayatollah's down. I have no idea. If Trump is limiting the potential length of this engagement, that means we can't do a full bombing campaign. That's probably good for Iran. Iran might decide to just ride it out, you know? It's possible that Iran just goes like, you know what, that guy was fucking 86 years old anyway. The Ayatollah was a piece of shit. The regime's kind of tattered. Let it ride, you know, let it ride. Some other enterprising IRGC fuck, or maybe a secular, you know, leader, nominally, ostensibly secular. Who knows, right? Maybe they ride it. The other possibility is that this goes on longer than Iran wants, like this turns into a real campaign. And if that happens, Iran might just decide, like, fuck it, we need to maximize harm and just do everything they can. And Iran does have the ability to do a lot of damage. You know, all of their proxies, all the people around the Middle East who support them and support their opposition to Israel and the United States. It's possible that this just turns into a larger intifada, if you prefer, you know, a big uprising, and people get all sorts of mad about it. I have no idea which they'd prefer to go for. This is probably going to lead to a lot of antagonism, like within Lebanon, you know, Syria. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Val, Mohammed, what's the latest from where you are? What are you hearing?
We are here in the northwest.
Everything about the lack of information prior to these attacks is so strange. Yeah, they really didn't try to lead us up to it. They're even admitting that it was a preemptive strike. They're not pretending that it was being done in response to an immediate perceived threat. So, I don't know. It kind of seems like they've given up on the pretext. The fact that they haven't done any more consent manufacturing prior to this makes me think that there was some internal miscommunication as to how much they were willing to commit to this and what the narrative was supposed to be. Or, in other words, I think Trump might have fucked it up again. That's my guess. There are plenty of deep state MIC fucks in the US government that would be happy to spend months and months building some narrative about how Iran has nukes pointed at Washington, D.C. right now. But I have a feeling that Trump's unwillingness to commit to, you know, interminable war, it might have gotten in the way of some of the propaganda scheduling, and now we're just in this middle zone where like nobody gets exactly what they want. Just a guess. Just a guess. I have no idea.
That district is called Pastor. It's very important. That's where some of the government institutions are, even including the presidential palace. But
from what I've read, Trump wants the Shah's son of power. Actually, my understanding was that Trump didn't favor the crown prince. Even if they could, even if they pushed for it, I don't know if they'd be able to get away with it. That'd be a pretty tough sell. I could be wrong.
And also there is a little bit of chaos behind me in the streets. There is a very, very interesting traffic jam here. That gives an indication about the panic.
Didn't Huck just say the BB line is that Iran is X days away from nuclear arms? Notably, one U.S. official did recently say that Iran was trying very soon to obtain, you know, enriched nuclear material. That was J.D. Vance. You know who didn't say it? Trump. I think that's very telling. We know J.D. Vance is a stooge to the deep state and will do and say what he's told. Trump didn't go with it. If this was really the narrative they were pushing in anticipation of a fucking bombing run, I think the president would have gone with it. I do feel like Trump might be the obstacle here. Not saying that it's because he's principled and good, but, you know, uncooperative here.
A one-off until a reaction comes from Iran, or there will be a continuation. I understand, or I know even, that there was some time between the first explosions and the second wave of explosions, about half an hour. So we do not know if that's going to be a pattern and if we're going to see more attacks later today, even if Iran hasn't yet reacted or hasn't yet attacked back. Or this is going to be just one attack to see what's the reaction in Iran.
Thank you.
The officials, the American officials, Israeli officials have been actually talking about this. Israeli is starting first, but also we know that it has been a joint operation between the two countries. But the fact that Israel has been the first to announce that it has launched these attacks is very interesting. It corroborates what has been reported during the last few days, that the American-Israeli plan is that Israel attacks first, and if there is a huge reaction from Iran, then the Americans have to intervene to protect their ally Israel. And that
He's got a good point. Because Americans intervene from the start, it also undercuts the narrative that we're only getting involved to defend Israel. Honestly, there's a lot of mismanagement taking place here. If this was a decapitation strike only, why were there strikes in multiple cities? Who were we targeting, you know? Like, optically, narratively, you don't want to strike a bunch of cities if you're trying to go for an assassination strike, I don't think. You kind of cloud the narrative there. Who are we going after? And also, why did we strike with Israel in the first place? Why wasn't there a big propaganda lead up to this? Why didn't we spend several weeks, you know, manufacturing this big bipartisan narrative that we need to invade Iran right now because they're pointing nukes at Tel Aviv right now? Just a lot of weirdness. It makes me hopeful, maybe unduly so, that this might not pan out the way they want it to. Like, this is another desperate attempt to sort of placate the bloodthirstiness of the average Israeli, but it's not going to lead to, you know, a real toppling of the regime. Well, I'm fine with the toppling of the Iranian regime. I just would like it to happen democratically from Iran's people and not from, like, you know, the worst people on earth. If anyone's going to topple Iran, I would prefer it to not be like protégés of Jeffrey Epstein, you know? Maybe that's naive of me to hope for. Do Dems also want this? Dem leadership does. Schumer unambiguously wants war with Iran. Whatever Israel wants, Schumer wants. Not most Dems, I don't think. Most Dems are pretty Zionist and I think to an extent bloodthirsty, but I think this is a step beyond. Maybe because they've been negatively polarized by Trump. We just started large-scale suppression of their air defenses, which indicates we might have manned strikes going in soon. Manned strikes? You mean like actual bomber runs? We'll see. Do you use the word American regime as well? You mean like, do I refer to the Trump administration as a regime? Yes, I've done that many times. I think that the Iranian regime is more of a regime because Iran is less democratic than America, but also we're not that democratic. So sure, you know, can toss it out, whatever percentage-wise you think is right. Here.
They are long-range weapons, precision-guided weapons, drone manufacturing facilities, weapons depots, and it believes Iqlim Tafah also is where Hezbollah has strategic weapons. So this escalation of attacks really has caused a lot of concern in Lebanon that the country could be dragged into a potential conflict, which is now happening between Israel, Iran, and the United States, because Hezbollah being Iran's strategic and ideological ally.
So what now? We sit and wait to see what happens? What's the alternative? Were you planning on going over there? What am I supposed to do? We'll find out. What's Massey tweeting?
With Israel, how might it respond? Will it get involved if there's a prolonged conflict between Tehran, Iran, and Israel and the U.S.?
Yes, it has been a question on everyone's minds in Lebanon. Even Lebanon's top political leadership has been repeating time and time again, warning Hezbollah not to launch what it is calling a new adventure and drag the country into another conflict. But you said, and you pointed out, how Hezbollah has been badly weakened, suffering major blows in the last year or so. Israeli attacks continue against its leadership, against its weapons depots. And, you know, it's a very difficult decision for Hezbollah to get involved. Israeli intelligence assessments say that they believe
Israel's preparing for several days of conflict with Iran. An Israeli official says the strikes carried out this morning, conducted jointly with the U.S., targeted Iranian regime and military sites, according to the official. That's not surprising.
Israel could carry out dozens of airstrikes in Beirut's southern suburbs.
We're not going to get casualty numbers for a while, my love.
Causing more displacement. There's still tens of thousands displaced by the late 2024 conflict. So very difficult decisions. A few weeks ago, Hezbollah's Secretary General said, and he was speaking during an event in solidarity with Iran, he said, as far as how we would act, those are the details. The battle itself will determine. We are expecting to hear from Hezbollah Secretary General in a few hours' time. This was a scheduled address, but no doubt he will have to comment on the latest developments and the strikes on Iran.
Zina Khodr in Beirut, thank you very much for now. We will, of course, check in regularly with you to find out the latest there from Lebanon. If you're just joining us on Al Jazeera, we're bringing you extensive coverage of this breaking news.
Is that a massive traffic jam in the Tehran camp? Yeah, of course. People are trying to get out of the city. They know what's coming.
An hour or so ago, explosions were heard in the Iranian capital, Tehran, as well as in Isfahan, Qom, Karaj, and Kermanshah. Israel announced that it was launching a preemptive attack on Iran, and some 20 minutes later...
I know it's often kind of difficult to consider, but like Tehran, like Iran's a real country. I know we often talk about what aren't real countries being real here? Afghanistan, Syria, most of Lebanon, right? Like you know what I mean. But Iran's a real fucking, yeah, Saudi Arabia. Iran's a real fucking country. They're a real ass country, you know? What's a preemptive strike for? Got to get it going. UAE, yeah.
Correspondent in Washington, D.C., Alan Fisher, as well as Zina Khodr in Beirut. And various guests will be analyzing and reacting to the news as we get the latest developments. Let's bring in Alan Fisher in Washington for now. Alan, tell us what's the latest from Washington, D.C. The U.S. Confirming that it is also involved in this attack on Iran. What's the extent of its involvement?
Well, I've been texting with someone who surprisingly is awake at 2 in the morning because they also heard of the attacks on Tehran. They seem to suggest that they believe that the United States' involvement in this is towards decapitating the head of the Iranian regime. They say that from what they can understand, the attacks were concentrated in areas where the supreme leader may well be living. And so the intention was to try and take out the head of the regime and then see what would happen afterwards. Now, many countries have warned the United States about an extended effort to try and force regime change in Iran. They wanted to know what was the plan for the day after and the day after that and the day after that, simply because you couldn't guarantee that if you removed the supreme leader, that necessarily what would happen with that a pro-Western, pro-United States government form in his absence. And so there could be a great deal
Literally the Venezuela strategy. It won't work, though. Even after we deposed Maduro, Venezuela's, it's exactly the same now as it was before. You only took a figurehead out. If you killed the Ayatollah, Iran would still work just the same. The IRGC and the people who rep them, it's a very, very large military bureaucracy over there. Like, the theocracy is not just the Ayatollah. But Israel's bloodlust isn't going to be satisfied with just a couple of, decapitation strikes.
Bloodshed in the aftermath, and they were concerned that that would leak over borders, that would cause instability
Iran's
across
also
the region,
a real country,
and they would be dragged into a regional war of some description. Now, as I say, that's just someone who is an analyst who understands these things far better than I do, but they suggest that this was a move at decapitation, but it would certainly fit in with some of the ideas that have been floated recently, not least by Lindsey Graham, who was travelling with Donald Trump on Friday, who has said often that he would like to see the supreme leader being replaced. So it may well be that the United States' involvement in this was limited to intelligence, but given the size of the US military buildup in the region, there's every possibility that American hardware, American service personnel was also used.
Alan, thank you for now. Ali Hashim, you've covered Iran extensively. If, as Alan said, the objective of this particular attack is to decapitate the head of the Iranian regime, the supreme leader. How difficult of a mission is that?
Well, it's clear from the
well, he's pretty old.
where we saw these attacks are on that the main objective is not just decapitation, but even hitting the command and control in the country. So hitting Pastor Street, where the presidency is, and the Supreme National Security Council, hitting the surroundings of the leader's house and the Assembly of Experts. So it's not only decapitation, but also preventing the Iranians from going towards the plan B, if there's a plan B. Now,
but presumably the Iranians would have prepared for such a scenario.
Now, just in case there is a second plan and a third plan and a fourth plan, and this is what we've been hearing from the Iranians, that there are several contingency plans.
Is Iran more tribal like Afghanistan, or are they more centralized from Tehran? Iran is not at all like Afghanistan. Iran is like a modern industrial. I mean, obviously, it's much like in the rural areas, it's much more like fucked and primitive. But that's the case in America too. Go to West Virginia. No, the Iran is much more developed than Afghanistan is on like any level. I think Tehran might need public transit. Yeah, maybe, yeah. Israel's closed their airspace? Yeah, of course. Have to when wartime starts.
Given the fact they've already seen this is a deja vu moment that they've seen on the 12th of the 13th of June. Now,
but then were they going directly after the Supreme Leader in June of last year?
Well, there were 3 attempts on the Supreme Leader's life in the June war, but they failed. There was an attack on the Supreme National Security Council convening, including the president, the
watching Qatari news for an unbiased perspective. You got it.
All the main actors in the Iranian decision
Iran's also running out of water. That is true. Yeah,
and
they have compounding issues
they were
over there.
able to hit the command and control.
Did they legit wait for the U.S. market to close?
Mainly
yes.
The commanders of the army and the IRGC. So now, even if this succeeded, even if they were able to kill...
Anything yet in Iran's response? Official message from the Ayatollah is, if you've been enjoying the show so far, get ready and refill your popcorn, because you're going to love the nothing that comes next. Iran has officially raised the red flag of nothing.
So that even if the head is gone, it's going to be, it's not going to be an immediate collapse, or it won't collapse directly.
An Iranian official now saying that Tehran is preparing for retaliation, Ali, and that the response will be crushing.
Of course.
What might the response look like?
Well, we know the main asset the Iranians have is their ballistic missiles. And actually, this is one of the issues that the Americans and the Israelis wanted on the table.
And the Iranian didn't want it on the negotiating
absolutely.
table.
Because they knew that the moment they are going to give up their ballistic missiles, then they are going to be open for any attack. And also, besides that, they have their own...
Iran can't really do anything with their ballistic missiles. American and Israeli air defense are both pretty sophisticated. You know, it's one thing to shoot a bunch of Hamas bottle rockets out of the sky, but like you know, we're talking about firing ballistic and cruise missiles hundreds of miles. They have American anti-air established everywhere. They would be able to intercept pretty much all of it. The real asset that Iran has is people. Vosh is wrong. They have enough missiles to get through. To get through, but not to do anything. You know, the most Iran could really hope for is to knock down a couple of apartment buildings in Tel Aviv, which, you know, as satisfying as I'm sure that would be for the Ayatollah, it wouldn't really do much to deter Israel. It's not a sustainable conflict. That's not true. Ballistic missiles go through. The Israel and America both have very sophisticated air defense. I'm telling you that Iran would not be able to do much. They would not be able to achieve much with missile retaliation. Again, the real long-term reprisal that Iran could offer is like destabilization from, you know, sympathetic Muslims in the region, whether that be in Lebanon or Syria or, you know, Yemen or Iraq. Could happen anywhere and everywhere. Apparently, the commander-in-chief of Iran is killed. Apparently, you say? That's not a confirmation. Israeli media confirms Amir Hatami, commander-in-chief of the Iranian army, is killed. Yeah, we'll see. Trump statement. 8 minutes. Oh, shit. He's got the white hat on, too. That's how you know. That's how you know he's serious. God, he looks so fucking retarded, man. I hate our chud fucking president so much. He looks so stupid. Putting this one in the history books. Daddy, why did the president wear a giant trucker cap with a suit and no tie? A kid probably wouldn't say that. I'm projecting. Do we want to make the video play? Do we believe in that? Truth Social? Hello? The white hat of revenge. Okay, I guess not. Can somebody find this on Twitter? It's probably been rehosted there already. It's down. No one can get it to work. Somebody's probably put it on Twitter as well. Find that for me, please. Try Chrome. I'm not going back. Hashtag breaking. Thousands of members of the IRGC have been killed or wounded following attacks several military. I don't believe this. Thousands? Off a decapitation strike? I don't believe that for a second. That sounds insane. Unless the extent of the strikes outside of Tehran are much larger than has been reported. Unless that's the case, then no. You got the video? Okay, we have the video. Here we go. On a functional website. Thank you, Elon.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
Uh-huh.
Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died.
Many.
Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch...
Why is he talking about this? Because it's a concession from the administration that they have failed to manufacture consent. If you are bombing a country and your opening statement for why you're doing it is like, 50 years ago, they did this. This is the kind of like petty ethnic grievance that you would expect from a fucking Balkan country. You know, this is like Albanian-Syrian relations. It's not. This is Armenian Azerbaijani relations. This is like, why are we declaring war? For millions of years, our people have fought. You know, it's ridiculous. Obviously, there's no reason for this. You know, they're just pitching. They're just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels in international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror. And we're not going to put up with it any longer. From Lebanon to Yemen and Syria to Iraq, the regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts. And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was brutal, something like the world has never seen before. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their...
There's nothing Trump despises more than A, admitting he was wrong in the past, and B, acknowledging that he can't solve something with a deal. He's still trying to solve the Ukraine-Russia conflict with a deal. He was put up to this. He probably sounds so bad and looks so greasy because they woke him up from his fucking old man nap and got him to read the script out loud. Like, this is the degree to what he is essentially no involvement in this, basically. Totally out of the loop. No clue. He's reading a paper.
Their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally...
Right, so Hegseth and Rubio just running the show for foreign policy then? Nah, it's not Hegseth or Rubio. This is, I'm sorry to pull, it's just Israel. It's Israel. It's Israel and the MIC, but Israel basically reps them, so, you know. Miller? No, not Miller. The military brass was not supportive of this, by the way? No, of course not. No. It's purely the Christian evangelicals, the MIC, and Israel. That's it.
Again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, and there is no military on earth even close to its power, strength, or sophistication. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties.
That's interesting. Like, we can't really incur casualties just by striking Iran, not with our missiles, not with our drones. I assume he's referring to retaliatory strikes in U.S. bases. The fact that he's priming us to lose people, though, U.S. casualties are a big deal.
That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future. And it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that, with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world.
It sounds like he's priming us for boots on the ground. No chance. We can't do boots on the ground. Boots on the ground in Iran would be insane. It'd be suicidal. There's no way. I assume the casualties that he's referring to are retaliatory strikes in U.S. bases. We do have troops deployed in the region, but not in Iran. I don't think that's going to happen.
And they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity.
Trump would never do that thing. That's insane. And Trump would never do something insane. Trump's not the one making the decisions, though. The goal here is to appease Israel at any cost and perpetuate indefinite war in the Middle East. You don't need boots on the ground to do that.
Or, in the alternative, face certain death. So, lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain...
Okay, wait, hold on.
Face certain night that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or, in the alternative, face certain death.
Okay, I still don't think we're doing boots on the ground, but if we're only doing bombing runs, under what circumstances would the IRGC have to lay down their arms in a surrender or death kind of deal? Like, if you're just bombing them, how would that opportunity ever arise? That does kind of make it sound like we're doing more than just bombing. I just can't see us putting boots on the ground. Iran's MiGs are in the air. Makes sense. I don't know how much they're going to be able to do.
So, lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity.
Like who would receive total immunity? Who's getting arrested? What is that? It might just be yapping. It might just he's trying to front as though he's being like merciful and reasonable, but it has nothing to do with her actual strategic intentions. I have no idea.
Or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is...
It's crazy how, in retrospect, the Bush administration's push for, like, democratizing Iraq comes across as really sincere, well-intentioned, and well-planned, you know? Like, the bar keeps falling. You go back and it's like, oh, what, you're telling me the Bush administration spent years consistently advocating for... Don't fall for it, right? But, like, they talked about it, hearts and minds, you know? Compare it to this...
Backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass. May God bless the brave men and women of America's armed forces. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless you all. Thank you.
Neat. Yeah, I really, I gotta say, I really don't know what the play is going to be here. This is all going to fall pretty flat if it's just a 4-day bombing run and afterwards nothing really changes. Maybe they kill the Ayatollah, but the underlying infrastructure stays the same. The problem is, there's nothing that we can do in the region that will sate Israel's bloodlust. They want infinite death. If we kill 100,000 Iranians and then stop, Israel will want more. There's no end to it, you know? Like, we're fronting with the expectation that eventually we'll reach a point of stability, but there never will be a point of stability. So what are you going to do? Repeat this song and dance every 6 months? Just for like indefinitely now, always. We just have to do this song and we have to do this pantomime, this puppet show theater. Wouldn't killing the Ayatollah make Iran think they have to do more than nothing? It's just, Iran can't do that much. The most they can really hope for is a big salvo. They empty all of their missiles and they do some damage in Saudi Arabia, Tel Aviv, whatever else. And then what do you get for it? Nothing. And then they have nothing. And then there's nothing they can do. And they're just open. They're just sitting. They're just sitting there, ready to be bombed. They can't do anything. The insurgency in the region is a much stronger long-term bet. But I mean, if they're pelting Iran anyway. I really wonder what would happen if the Middle East was just conquered. What would Israel's excuse for existing be? If Israel conquered the Middle East, they would invade Egypt and Turkey next. There's no end to it. I'm saying this with a absolute sincerity. There is no end. Israel will be stopped or they will take over the whole world. They can't do that, so at some point they will have to be stopped. It's really that simple. Iran doesn't have a nuclear stockpile. Are you exaggerating about Israel? No, not at all. Oh, you mean Israel's nuclear stockpile? Oh, gotcha. Is Iran fighting back? With what? ICBMs? Hold on. Close this, close that. Lots of stuff to close. Hey.
Own program. And we can't take it anymore.
Oh, I've seen this guy.
Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue.
It's the enriched material that escaped the sites because Trump ran his mouth. It's unaccounted for. Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. Even if they have, were able to make it out with enriched material, which does not, like, that's totally possible. That doesn't surprise me if they have. They do not have a nuclear weapon. Trust me, we would know if they did. The whole point of a nuclear deterrent is that it deters. Other people have to know about it. Also, making a nuke's, pretty complicated. Can you explain why Israel could never stop? Because that's what fascist expansionists are. That's what the Nazis were. The Nazis couldn't stop either. If the Nazis had succeeded in conquering the United Kingdom, they just would have kept moving south. They expanded outwards in all directions. They wanted everything, the Middle East, North Africa. If they had taken the Soviet Union, they would have gone after China eventually. There's no end. It's just, yeah, they're like a political cancer. They spread everywhere. That's the ideology. That's the point. Eventually it burns out. It has to lose. You know?
Use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people.
We'll wait for him to finish. Get back to the regular coverage. Yeah, but they have 400 nukes. Israel? Yeah, that's a real issue. It's a real problem. Yeah, it's a real problem. So what are we going to do? I don't know. What do you want from me? Been advocating for, a UN takeover of Israel for a while, but they haven't been getting my letters, or they haven't been responding to them. We'll wait for him to stop talking, and the Al Jazeera people will go back to talking. This is all England's fault? Yeah, everything is. Everything is. Israel doesn't have the numbers to conquer anything without U.S. backing, though. Yeah, but we do back them. We back. And by the way things are right now, we would back Israel in a conflict with a European country. We kind of already have. Most of Europe has been, like, pretty stalwart in their political opposition to what Israel is doing, at least in the form of their UN votes, but we argue with them. We've already been doing that. You know, the German, UK, etc. governments are ostensibly pro-Israel, but the population of the EU is not. Far more anti-Israel than the American population is, though we're catching up slowly but surely. He sure is yapping. I don't want to listen to him a second time. It's okay. I have a feeling I'm going to be here for a while anyway. Apparently, China sold Iran carrier-sinking missiles recently. I wouldn't get your hopes up too much there. As an Iranian, here's my biased take. Many in Iran wanted this war. Best case scenario is for the regime to go a transition period to get to a fair election for a secular democratic government. Good luck. I really don't think many Iranians have wanted to be bombed by America and Israel. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of Iranians wanted to get rid of the Ayatollah. That's not a secret. But this is probably not the way you want him gone. Also, if you really think that this is going to lead to secular democratic governance, I mean, maybe. I would be surprised. You'd be surprised a lot of people are desperate and delusional. I say this as an Iranian. Sure, that's true, but it should be worth noting that, like, even if every single Iranian said they wanted to be colonized by Israel, I would still say, I don't want that, you know? Their desperation for an alternative to the Ayatollah is not necessarily well-informed politically. Again, Israel just wants infinite death. I know it sounds like a quirky anime villain statement, like I'm talking about the CEO of Umbrella Corp or whatever, but it is what their idea... Like, it literally, look at the statements made by Israeli government officials, consistently. Not just one, not just two, just the government, broadly, and their people. Look at polling. It's not good. And we've seen this before. It's not magic. We've seen what fascist expansionism looks like before, you know? It's just the world hasn't really seen it since World War II. Because after World War II, the international rules-based order more or less decreed, like, listen, I'm not saying there can't be war anymore, but you can't do Nazi Germany shit. You can't just launch war with every one of your fucking neighbors and try to conquer the world. For the most part, the wars that we saw throughout the Cold War, right, like post-World War II, were regional, right? They were civil wars, internal conflicts, or like police actions, military disputes, special actions, you know? They weren't like, you know, one country going, just gonna conquer the whole world this time, whatever. Except for that one time Israel tried to do it, if you remember, and then had to give all the land back. If you'll recall, how apropos. But this is, with the possible exception of Russia invading Ukraine, though I would argue Israel's ambitions are a lot more malicious than what Russia's are. This is the first time the world has had this, like an basically untethered and militarily superior fascist expansionist country. One motivated by religious zeal, no less. It's not good. Very unique.
As they were negotiating with Iran about their nuclear program, and the Omani negotiator appeared on American television just a few hours ago to say,
Bosch is so brain broken at Israel, holy fuck Lamau. I think that, like, everything that I've said is extremely empirically defensible if you just look at basic statements made by Israeli government officials and also polling on their people, and you do basic analysis on the relationship between their positions, their ideology, and how it relates to historical precedent. It's not really about being brain broken. It's not an inherent statement. It's not conspiracy. It's just that is the end point of their ideology. You know, it's not good.
This operation to last.
We've seen it before.
Of course, we have no idea of telling that. We have no idea what the targets are. We know that the United States will have significant intelligence from Iran. We know that they're working hand in hand with the Israelis.
I think taking Greater Israel seriously is giving them a bit too much credit. Really? Because the American ambassador to Israel said they could do it, and also Israeli government officials have said they want to do it, and also the people of Israel have said they want to do it, and also they keep striking the countries around them. If it's just a meme, they're fooling me. If they're yanking my chain, then they're taking me on a dang ruse cruise. They're fooling me, you know? It's working. Whether or not Israel is actually capable of doing it, which they could with our help, you know. The hard part of conquering and occupying new territory is just that, occupying it. If you kill everyone on your way in, it's a lot easier. The Nazis understood this. Massive depopulation of the communities that you're trying to occupy usually keeps them quiet. Israel knows this. They're very aware of this. It's their preferred tactic. And also, we back up everything they do. We protect them in the United Nations. We give them money. We give them weapons. So, yeah, like we're definitely setting the stage. They can't kill 100 million people. Well, they don't need to. The point isn't, can they succeed? If Israel got Greater Israel, if they succeeded in expanding their borders to the perceived biblical borders of Israel, they would still want war. It's not about whether or not they can reach that point. It's not like they lose if they only kill 99 million people, you know? I don't want them doing this at all. Whether or not they can do it is immaterial. Whether or not they would try to is what matters. And yeah, they do have nukes, and they will use them if they totally would. Come on. This sounds like a ground invasion, unfortunately. God, I fucking hope not.
They will be preparing for now is the backlash. We already saw that with the evacuation of some embassies around the region when non-essential staff were told that they should leave, and they should leave now. That suggests that perhaps, as Donald Trump was saying, he hadn't made a decision. The wind was moving in the direction of an attack. Of course, there'll be allies in the
Chad's
region.
forgetting about Israel taking control over eastern Egypt during the Suez until the U.S. and USSR both forced them to give it up. The idea that Israel has long been trying to expand its border, like it's very clear what they want. You know, I mean, Jesus, they took a part of Syria. They expanded the Golan Heights illegal occupation just for no reason during the Syrian uprising. Jolani, you know, they ousted Assad, and Israel in the chaos was like, yep, just going to move a little further in. Like, they're really aggressive, you know, violating international law nonstop. No one stops them. I mean, we're really like rewarding them for bad behavior. Do you think Israel or even the U.S. might use a nuke? The United States would not use a nuke for anything happening in the Middle East. It just does not. We don't have that much skin in the game. Now, Israel 100% would if they felt threatened. Absolutely. They are insane. I would not at all be surprised if they did so in response to a perceived threat. Which, if they keep overextending, eventually their own collapse is inevitable. You know, it might take a year or 10, but does Israel have the manpower to maintain an invasion? I mean, invasion of where, you know? Sure. But again, like, Nazi Germany was drafting 12-year-old boys. You know, they'll do what they need to.
Who'll be concerned, particularly about the idea of regime change. We remember, if you go back to the original Iranian Revolution in the 70s, there was a
Why
real
do you distinguish
possibility.
between U.S. and Israel foreign policy? They're one and the same? No. There's a heavy overlap, but there are distinctions. There are entities in America that operate out of a perceived rational self-interest, and even our capitalists, for the most part, do just want, you know, the cogs of industry to keep turning. But the rational self-interested people in Israel are a lot quieter relative to the insane majority. There's a lot more open racial animus, expansionist interest, and like religious zealotry in Israel making the calls. Don't get me wrong. In America, we have plenty of that. Christian evangelicals basically run the government, which is insane. They're not even like close to a majority of the population. But, you know, it is what it is. In Israel, the ratio is even worse, I suppose. But it's pretty bad in both ends. It's complicated.
for a short period of time after Ayatollah Khomeini returned to the country that people described as radical Islamists may well take over the country. They were eventually...
Perish the thought. Sorry if this sounds silly. I'm still learning a lot. What do you think Israelis' ideal endgame would be? The world owned by them, the U.S., maybe one other, just total coverage? I think, like a lot of fascist expansionist movements, Israel just wants murder and blood. And the reason why is because that's the only future they see for themselves. People are really, really, really susceptible to narratives. The reason Germany was able to do what it did in World War II and in the Holocaust was because they were pitched a very specific narrative about the world, you know? In America, we have all kinds of narratives, you know? We might have broad racist narratives about our relationship to the rest of the world, but for most individual Americans, the narrative is about, I don't know, making enough money to get a house and then, like, having a hot broad, a hot Boyd under your arm. You know, most people have narratives that are self-interested, right? Individualistic. That's a very American thing. We do like that over here. But the predominant narrative in Israel is one of national and ethnic and religious conquest. I think that there is no end vision. Greater Israel is just the start. The goal eventually, well, it's, I wouldn't even say there was a goal, right? I would say the goal is expansion. If they got up to a certain border, they would always want to expand it further. There's always more land to take and always more people to kill. I don't really think they think about it much beyond that, you know? Like with Germany as well. Like, why did they do all that shit? Like, why invade everyone all at once, you know? Like, could Germany have not partitioned a little bit more? Waited on the USSR, waited on the Middle East, waited on North Africa, maybe done a little bit more like selective engagement with regard. Like, part of the answer, unfortunately, is they are insane, and that the zealotry, the zeal for forward motion is what drives that national interest, and without it, they collapse. And that is what's happening in Israel right now. Israel relies heavily on its military and its arms industry to keep the country afloat. The country has shifted massively towards, like, its economy and its society are both very heavily invested in the continuation of this dynamic. Us versus the world, antagonism, survival against the Arab hordes. So as long as that is the narrative for the country, what else do you expect, you know? Like, where else are they going to go? What else can they do? And we have made this narrative for them. This is a delusional narrative that has only been able to be created in the absence of consequences for the previous actions. If Israel was a normal country that wasn't being backed by the USA, I promise you, they would have had a reckoning with reality a long time ago. But because we keep feeding their delusions, enabling them, that's why Zionists are so conceited and demanding. That's why we give them everything, and then they turn around and they demand that they receive more, that we haven't given them enough. We've created a delusional feedback loop. It's not good. You know, it's not great. It's not phenomenal. Why don't countries who are attacked declare war anymore, like formally? Because that shit's for nerds. More strikes in Tehran? Cool. Tehran's internet's blacked out. Iran missile launches detected. It'll be a little while before anything fired from Iran can hit Israel or Saudi or U.S. targets. Been thinking, though, Russia seems like the weaker version of Israel ambitions? Yes, Israel and Russia are very similar, but Russia's nowhere near as committed to this narrative. There's not as much zealotry in their population, and also they aren't motivated by, like, more metaphysical interests, right? Like, there is a lot of ethnic supremacism in Russia, but the, like, doomsday cult religious zeal stuff, that's not as prominent. There's some element of it, but you don't really have that. Like, Israel is literally the Jewish state reclaiming its biblical borders against the Arab hordes, whereas with Russia, it's like, you know, Eastern Orthodox invading Eastern Orthodox. It's you know, there's a lot more perceived camaraderie between Ukrainians and Russians. I'm not saying Russia's not racist against Ukrainians. I'm just saying that there's not that same, like, hard line that they've drawn that's produced these distinctions. So you don't have the same kind of, like, insane zeal for most. I think the average IDF soldier is probably much more politically invested in the eradication of Arabs than the average Russian soldier is the eradication of Ukrainians. That would be my guess. I don't really have any polling data to go off there because I don't think anyone's polling Russian soldiers on the front, but my guess is that the average IDF soldier is pretty like actively fucking racist, and the average IDF soldier is, oh sorry, the average Russian soldier is like, what the fuck, it's cold, oh I'm dead. You know what I mean. Sucks to suck, I guess. If Iranians are firing ballistic missiles, the time from launch to impact should be 12 to 20 minutes. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see. I'll be here. Israel's a war economy now. The Nazis were partially going on borrowed money. They had to steal riches to pay loans, or the country would collapse. Is hypothetically Israel at that point? Israel would be at that point if they had to fight sustained wars with their neighbors. So far, Israel has not. Like, Israel, for the most part, has just been, like, killing children, you know? When the IDF invaded Lebanon, they actually did pull out relatively soon after because, as it turns out, it's difficult and expensive to maintain that kind of occupation. If they really did try to expand their military ambitions, they would inevitably run into money problems that we would no doubt have to shore up. Would you quit trying to minimize Russia to boost Israel's badness? I'm not minimizing Russia. I'm sorry. I don't think that's an accurate way of describing what I just said at all. There is an ideological difference in the animus that motivates the Russian population and military and the Israeli population and military. That's just true. My position on Russia has been pretty goddamn clear for years now. I really don't think it's fair to say that I'm minimizing their evil. Why do you keep mentioning Iran striking Saudis? The Saudis aren't involved in this war right now, right? Yeah, but the Saudis are basically a U.S. puppet state, so Iran might go sicko mode. Or more likely strike U.S. assets in the region.
Defeated.
Towards Israel.
What up just popped in? Just having a good time.
Well, the Israeli army fully has issued a warning. The Home Front Command has issued also warnings and sirens telling residents of the Galilee and the Upper Galilee that missiles from Iran have been sighted and that they that they are headed towards Israel. Several warnings and messages have been received on people's phones.
I would be astonished if these missiles were being fired in any quantity capable of meaningfully bypassing air defense. Like, they might strike some military and civilian facilities, but I doubt it's going to do anything significant. It's just too difficult. It's so expensive. Missiles are so expensive. Like, really damaging a country via missile strikes takes so much money. Bombs are a lot cheaper, but, you know, modern air defense makes it basically impossible. You can't really conduct a bombing run over Israel. They'd shoot your plane down like the nanosecond it got even close to their airspace.
Shared with the public in Israel or beyond that around the world about the events happening. According to the Israeli military censor, of course, that would be viewed as assisting the enemy in the words of that directive. So we are already seeing the first signs of anticipation of Iranian attacks on.
I'm begging you to explain why the U.S. military is just an expansion of Israelis' interests. It's not. Not entirely, at least. It's a little bit more complicated than that. It goes back to like the holy trinity of why we support Israel in the way that we do, right? The big three are MIC interests, military industrial complex. The idea being that if we have permanent instability in the Middle East, we benefit because we get to conduct research, sell weapons, you know, we get to promote and fearmonger. The threat of Iranian nuclear weapons means that we always get to have the top of the line, you know, bunker busters and fighters. And we have 2 aircraft fleets parked outside of Iran, which is unbelievably expensive to maintain, just fuel costs alone. All this stuff, the fear of permanent war means that the military-industrial complex always gets their cut, okay? Number two is political. It's like the religious and ideological undercurrent of Zionism, a mix of the ethno-nationalism of Israelis and the religious fundamentalism of American Christian evangelicals. Christian evangelicals believe that in order for the rapture to begin, Jews need to control the biblical borders of Israel, the Holy Land. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's open. You can ask people about it. Tens of millions of Americans believe in this. They think that the only thing that needs to be done now, the only thing left to trigger the rapture, which would bring back Jesus Christ and usher the holy and faithful to heaven, so they really want this, is for Israel to get those borders. So, yeah, it's a death cult. This is why a lot of Christian evangelicals don't care about stuff like climate change. They think that we're just about there, just about through the finish line. And there are a lot of Jews in Israel who don't necessarily believe that about the rapture, but they do believe that they need the Holy Land because they're like the chosen people and so on and so on. So there's a synchronicity there, an alignment. And the third interest is like broader capital, particularly, in my opinion, tech and surveillance companies. Surveillance companies have been contracting with the IDF for ages because the Palestinian population has been a phenomenal guinea pig testing ground for surveillance tech, using AI to scan people's faces, using surveillance cameras to triangulate people's locations and track them, using gun turrets that can auto-target people's heads, There's a whole bunch of like really evil military technology that we've been testing there, fronting through private contractors, which is one of the reasons why there's such a weird amount of overlap between America and Israel when it comes to tech and surveillance companies, A lot of wacky stuff like that. These are the three big reasons why we support Israel so much. Unfortunately, the combined political power of those three groups is so big that it's pulled in everyone else into its orbit. Or to put it another way, there are many people, especially Democrats, who don't agree with any one of those three groups, but still are self-described Zionists because the political pressure of acquiescing to those groups' demands is so significant that they might not be able to be reelected if they go against them. So it's unfortunately, it's a big fucking whirlpool of evil, essentially, that's pulled in a lot of people. The American population is waking up to a certain extent to how fucking bad it is over there in Israel, and that's good, but it doesn't really dislodge those other nested interests. That's the gist of it. It's not really about Israel controlling the United States. In fact, I think it's irresponsible to say that because it implies that Israel's interests are divorced from America's, like Israel's some kind of occupying force that supersedes our power in the region, which isn't true, really. It's kind of like America is the puppet master and Israel is the puppet, and the hand with the puppet is doing this. Like your hand is in the boot. You know what I mean? The whole thing is a pantomime to serve a specific set of interests, but the idea that they're like separate, or that like Israel is in any way anti-America. I mean, they're anti-American in the same way that Christian evangelicals in America are, right? Israel is no more anti-America than Trump is. Trump, the Christian evangelicals, oligarchs, they do stuff to destroy American interests all the time. They deregulate, they hurt our environment, they hurt our labor rights. They contribute to trends of income inequality. They make our housing unaffordable. There's in a million ways, right? Like no war but class war. These are our enemies, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the reason why. It's not necessarily Israel controlling our military. Israel's getting cocky and does not like having to hold back to match U.S. interests. That's also true. Keep in mind the three groups that I just listed are not like a bunch of shadowy guys together in a cabal meeting room, but actually a very complicated, loose coalition of powerful interests that each have their own personal agendas. So, there is disagreement within these groups, and Israel, by and large, is crazier than we would like them to be, Yes, there is a guy called Jeff who runs both countries. That is true. AP said explosions heard in northern Israel. Neat.
He doesn't want to antagonize domestic feelings by looking like it is siding with the United States and with Israel in attacking a fellow Muslim country, but it does have, as I just mentioned, US infrastructure here. There is US military infrastructure in many countries around the region of the Gulf and the Middle East, including Qatar, including Saudi Arabia, etc. Many of these countries in recent days and weeks
in Israel. Well, we'll see when those missiles hit Tel Aviv. I'm sure some of them will. Netanyahu made a statement. Blah, 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 we want death. Gotcha, gotcha. The Crown Prince. My dear compatriots, moments of destiny lie ahead of us. That guy. The aid that the President of the United States promised to the brave people of Iran has now arrived. This is a humanitarian intervention, and its target is the Islamic Republic, its repressive apparatus, and its machinery of slaughter, not the country and great nation of Iran. The final victory will be forged in our hands, we, the people of Iran, who will finish the job in this final battle. The time to return to the streets is near. Now that the Islamic Republic is collapsing, my message to the country's military, police, and security forces is clear. You've sworn an oath to protect Iran and the Iranian people, not the Islamic Republic and its leaders. Your duty is to defend the people, not a regime that's taken our homeland hostage through repression and crime. My message to the President of the United States is the noble people of Iran, despite the savage repression and massacres of this regime, stood firm with courage for nearly 2 months. Now ask you to exercise the utmost caution to preserve the lives of civilians and my compatriots. The people of Iran are your natural allies and those of the free world. They will not forget your support in the most difficult period in contemporary Iranian history. Yeah, fuck this guy. That's true, I don't speak Farsi. Gotcha, cool. Well, he's like, yeah, I mean, he's... Vosh, you're making this very simplified? Yeah, no shit, it's like a crazy complicated subject, and I was responding to one chat message. He said like and subscribe. That's true. What kind of regime does the USA and Israel want to install? A subservient one. But keep in mind, again, no regime that Iran could install would ever be enough to deter their bloodlust.
Said we will not.
This attack launched by the United States, I think it'll raise all sorts of questions. I think the American people have not been prepared for war, but I think there are all sorts
even
of
though
legal
we saw
questions as well.
this huge U.S. military buildup in the region, surely they must have anticipated that something was going to be happening. I mean, would they have sent out this armada, as President Trump called it, without doing anything?
But there weren't the debates on Capitol Hill that there were when there was previously a very big war, and the equivalent, the last time there was anything that big was 2003.
World War III is trending on Twitter because Westoids are self-centered. There's no World War III. We're just bombing Iran. Where do we go from here? I don't know. Stop asking me rhetorical questions. I have no answer to that.
And that's when the Americans, as you know, invaded Afghanistan in 2001. And literally from the moment they did that, they were preparing for over a year the public for a war. There has been no preparation for this. Yes, those of us that watch Al Jazeera, our viewers, will be aware of that big build-up. You watch American TV, lots of the American public will not be aware of this. On Capitol Hill, they will say, many will say, this
not
is
sure,
illegal,
my love, and
Congress
also
is
no.
supposed to authorize something as big as this. And let's not forget the little thing of international law. You need a Security Council resolution to do something like this, and they don't have that. And,
So the
and
case
Israel
for
saying
war-
it's a preemptive action. I mean, there was no imminent attack coming from Iran.
So
there's
the
no
case
legal
for war the Americans and the Israelis make is not a very convincing one. Did they even need to convince anyone?
Stay
of
safe,
this?
George
It seemed that they had their minds made up about going after
They
Iran.
absolutely had their minds up, and President Trump's narrative, which I'm sure people who watch
How does
his
this
Truth
interact
Social,
with Pakistan and Afghanistan? I'm gonna be real. I don't think there's an interaction. I just think they're being silly. I think Pakistan and Afghanistan right now are fighting over who's the, I don't know, the most committed to jihad or whatever. Which one of our countries houses the most Islamic terrorists? Slap fighting. You know, they're just having fun.
time it has happened like that. You'll remember that last time in June there was active diplomacy going on, and I think there'll be some questioning whether really you can treat the US when it's doing diplomacy as a good faith actor anymore.
Right. We've just had a statement from Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, James. Netanyahu made an address to the nation saying, well, it's a statement, in fact, saying Israel and the U.S. launched an operation to remove the existential threat posed by the terror regime in Iran. Our joint action will create the conditions for the brave Iranian people to take their fate into their own hands, he says, in the coming days during Operation Roar of the Lion. That's what this operation is being labeled. He says we'll be able to, we'll all be required to show patience and resilience. Ali Hashem, what are we to make of this? The case for war made by President Trump, this statement from the Israeli Prime Minister,
joke.
How will the Iranians be receiving this?
Well, actually, we've been hearing from different officials in the United States with respect to the Iranian build-up. So Steve Witkoff was mentioning Iran being a week away from building a new nuclear weapon or elements of
Which is
nuclear
quite
weapon.
it contradicts what they said back in
June.
After June, where they said they'd obliterated. Those were his words.
Contradicts reality too.
Also, the claims that Iran can launch missiles towards Europe and the United States, and we know that the cap of the Iranian missiles is 2,000 kilometers. So, I mean, a lot of claims. It's kind of building a narrative. This narrative was built, and yesterday we were just discussing this now. When the Omani foreign minister went to television, it was clear that he was desperate. He knew that this is coming, and he was trying his last bullet maybe, and it didn't work.
Yeah,
now,
the Omanis are usually very discreet in diplomacy. So for the foreign minister to go on American television,
that was a public plea.
Yeah, James.
I think the other thing that's interesting in that statement from Netanyahu is, again, an appeal to the Iranian people. And you heard that from President Trump. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny. Do not let it pass.
Yeah.
They clearly think there is a phase 2 to this operation that's going to happen organically from the ground in Tehran and cities around Iran. But are Iranians going to rise up after?
So the strategy, it's almost as if the strategy is hope. They're pinning their hopes also a lot on the Iranian people.
I'm building on...
Which is pathetic and also very, very, very poorly planned out, right? If their goal was actually to support some kind of insurgent uprising against the Ayatollah, this is like the worst possible way to do that.
Differ. There is a complete, let me say, split over here between even those who want the system to collapse. Of course, there are some of them who are pro-intervention, but many of them, let me say the majority in Iran, are anti-intervention. If they want to bring down the system, they want to bring it down by themselves.
But let me ask you this, just to be a bit provocative here, how can they bring down the system, as you say, without help from outside?
Well, the idea is that this is how things, this is the debate, and this is how debate has been going on in Iran for years, that a national, or let me say a patriotic opposition inside can pose a kind of threat to the system and can push the system towards reforms and changes. However, when things come from outside, it's different. And in general, the Iranian people view, you cannot really stereotype everyone, and you cannot just say 93 million
it's not a monolithic,
are all the same.
It's not
but at the end, this is a proud nation. It doesn't deal with things this way. So this is the main issue over here, and especially in the past weeks, we've been hearing a lot of stances coming from the United States, coming from Israel. The way how people are receiving these stances is different. It's mixed, and this system in Iran.
I mean, the big problem with any sort of like external assistance to the people overthrowing the regime in Iran is like they know we're evil. For one, Israel is also doing the bombing, and the Iranian people don't like Israel, and no one should like Israel because they're evil. And also, I mean, to a lesser extent perhaps, but likewise with America, we can't really make a case for us actually supporting democratization in Iran because we're obviously an antagonistic force. We are not trustworthy. The people might hate the Ayatollah, and they should, but that does not mean that they would be willing to work with or facilitate U.S. military operations to depose him. Not necessarily, at least.
Condemn this. It is I think this is the other thing to state. This is a very bold action by President Trump. If he's launching this long-sustained campaign, which seems to be what he's saying in his social media post, and asking the US people to rise up. Now, President Trump, in many ways, has been a very lucky president, and he's been a very lucky president when it comes to military action. You look at what happened last year in June. He joined the Israelis, and it was a short operation to take out the nuclear program. It had a clear objective. I'm not sure they do have a clear objective here. And the word that comes to mind potentially is hubris. Is this going to be the military operation that doesn't go the way that Donald Trump wants? Because you're dealing with a very combustible situation in the Middle East, and you're dealing with a nation of more than 90 million people.
It is coming up to 8:30 GMT. If you're just joining us on Al Jazeera, we are covering a continuing coverage of the U.S.
Probably a lot more reasonable than any coverage we'll see elsewhere. I mean, I look forward tomorrow morning. We're going to see, you know, CNN bits or whatever, where so-called Democrats and moderates are going to be wringing their hands over our illegal strikes on Iran. What was hitting Tehran anyway? Government building. Trying to get the Ayatollah. Intelligence ministry.
Major combat operations.
This guy.
In
Fucking
Iran.
hate this guy.
A vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged...
I need to listen to this again. How's Agenda-Free TV doing?
Right now. Now, they're showing on Al Jazeera some smoke. Is that a live shot in Iran on Al Jazeera that I'm looking at? If you look at Al Jazeera Arabic, hold on a moment here.
Agenda-Free TV's fucking camera angle always cracks me up so much. The fisheye lens plus, like, looking down like this, you know?
Yes, Al Jazeera is showing a live shot of Tehran. If you go to Al Jazeera Arabic on...
So noted. ABC News put out a bit.
In terms of how we got here, but let's talk about just these past few months, from the demonstrations in Iran that were taking place, but also these negotiations between U.S. and Iran that were also going on.
They have been ongoing, these negotiations, but if you remember, President Trump at first threatened to go after Iran in the last month because of the massive protests that you saw across Iran, and thousands killed, thousands of protesters, according to human rights groups who are keeping track of this. The president threatened Iran, and then he has talked very little about the protests, that is not the reason that President Trump wanted to go.
Kids celebrating the attack. I love Trump. That's funny. You really are desperate. Vosh, your view of the Iranian people's position on intervention is outdated. I've spoken to several Iranian leftists, and it seems like the recent massacres have caused a genuine change in how these guys view the situation. Before, they were staunchly anti-U.S. intervention, but the massacres earlier this year have left the people so hopeless and paralyzed on the issue of overthrowing the Islamic Republic. Now many view U.S. intervention as the lesser of two evils. Well, I guess we'll find out, won't we? We'll get some opinion polls after they successfully depose the IRGC. I mean, I don't really know what to... Look, I mean, we've seen how this plays out before, okay? Broader destabilization in the Middle East. You know, the replacement of religious Muslim regimes with U.S. secular interests. It doesn't work out in the long run. We'll see how it goes. I hate the Ayatollah more than Israel or the Shah or U.S. intervention. Yes, but what you have to appreciate is that these are not necessarily juxtaposed possibilities, you know? I mean, you might end up getting the worst of both worlds here. You might end up getting a country that's controlled by Islamic extremists and also nonstop Western intervention. They're shooting missiles at Israel now? Well, I hope they're having fun. Yemen also joined in, ballistic launches from there to northern Israel. There was an Iraq and Saddam was far more evil. Well, it was bad when we invaded Iraq. The invasion of Iraq was initially popular with the Iraqi people. It was the brutal shit we did after they gave Iraqis regrets. Yeah, I mean, our invasion of Iraq didn't just kill people immediately. It also led to well over 1 million deaths in supply chain breakdowns, starvation, disease, and so on and so on. In addition, we made ISIS. You know, ISIS, that was fun. We did that. And to this day, Iraq remains like a weak puppet state, you know? One of the most powerful military forces in Iraq is Iran, with their own separate partitioned military. The Iraqi government barely has control over its own population, its own territory. You know, bankrupt, weaker than it ever was under Saddam. I'm not saying Saddam Hussein was good. I'm saying that this strategy of fixing the Middle East is really bad. It keeps failing over and over and over again. We spent 20 years in Afghanistan, and the puppet government we built up fell apart like a pile of matchsticks the moment we left. It took nothing. It took that the Taliban won before we'd even taken off. Anyway.
Collapse of the Islamic Republic make many Iranian happy? Yes, it does make many Iranian happy. We have a government in Iran which is corrupt, authoritarian, highly cleric. Its hands is diluted with the Iranian blood. It killed thousands of the people in the recent protests and hundreds before that through the execution and suppression of the protests. So I very much doubt that.
Iran. We've also been hearing from Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He addressed Israel saying the time has come for all segments of the Iranian people to throw off the yoke of tyranny and bring about a free and peaceful Iran. Well, let's bring in Giago from BBC Persian. He's been following developments with me here in the studio. What do you make of what the Israeli government has had to say there, following on from what we've heard from President Trump, asking Iranians to rise up?
I think all the sign indicates, particularly what we have heard from Israel and what we have heard from President Trump, it seems this has been well planned and it won't finish anytime soon. Because as I said just an hour ago, if you would have asked me what is the purpose of this attack, I might have said maybe they want to put pressure on Iran in the negotiation to give up more. But it seems what President Trump said, it was clearly a declaration of war on Iranian and called on Iranian security
not
forces
legally.
And Islamic and Iranian Revolutionary Guards to choose between death and life. And obviously he said, leave the government, defect, and also called on people to go to the shelter. There will be a massive bombing in the coming days. And when we are done, you can come out and finish the government, finish the regime once for all. It seems he is clearly supporting the regime change in Iran. And in the past couple of hours, the footage we are hearing is, it seems to me, for example...
Live feed from Israel, from the Associated Press. It's just the sirens. Apparently there have been a couple of hits inside of Israel or Tel Aviv, but it's not going to be significant. The U.S. is firing Tomahawk missiles from Navy ships into Iran, according to U.S. officials. Good. Happy to hear we're having fun, too. 2 more explosions heard in Tehran. Air defense is activated in Tehran. It's going to be going on for a while. Do you think even 2% of Americans know why we're being aggro with Iran? Probably not, no. We're pretty stupid. And they haven't really done much explaining. Well, fuck shit was going down the stream. In this one? One strike near Tel Aviv. It's not going to do anything. There's nothing Iran can do with its missiles.
The flag sort of sentiment, I believe, people who are opposed to that military action. This one comes after those protests were brutally brought down by the government. What's your feeling about how people might react this time around?
We know during the war, normally many people run for safety. Many people, even last year, they left Tehran, they went to other cities to make sure they wouldn't be hurt. And there was a mixed feeling last year. Some people say a foreign country have attacked us. And I mean, I wouldn't say they really supported the government, but much majority of them, they stayed at home or left.
You're wrong. Iranian missiles are very effective. Your military analysis is very bad. I can't tell if you're joking, but like you do understand that Iran does not have the ability to achieve any objectives with its missiles, right? Like leaving aside the extremely dense network of anti-air coverage that we have and Israel has in the region, like what, you strike a couple of buildings? It's not going to do anything. Foster, stop talking about Iran's missile capabilities. You're embarrassing yourself. What is up with you people? Do you have any idea how expensive it is to achieve anything with missile strikes? Do you know how expensive missiles are? It takes weeks and months of bombing runs and artillery shelling to bring down a city. You think that they're going to achieve this with missiles? The most they could do is one big wave of terror. That would be it. They can't achieve or threaten anything operationally. Like they don't have the ability to do it, you know? Yeah, they could kill some people. Obviously, missiles do that. But missiles on their own is not they're not a very effective way of waging a war if you are the relatively impoverished nation. Choke the Strait of Hormuz?
Hitting
Maybe.
Iranian leadership, military and also political leaders, in hopes of creating an environment for Iranian people without fear come to the street and end the regime. That's exactly what President Trump was calling today in his speech.
Gee, I don't want to step too far ahead because we do not know.
Yes, the
how
U.S.
things are going to pan
operation
out in the
name
next few
for what we're doing right now is called Operation Epic Fury. That is true. We somehow came up with a name even more lame than the Israelis.
years to try and bring about a change in the country. Just talk to us about what people will be saying, who will be working with who, and how would Iranians want to take ownership of a moment like this?
Well, we know, as you said, there has been a long struggle, so more than 4 decades against Islamic Republic of Iran by opposition. There are a few prominent figures, and many of them are in the prison inside the country, and also obviously outside of the country. The son of the former Shah, the King of Iran, Prince Reza Pahlavi, his name was chanted in the last protest in most of the cities. And also, don't forget, Iran is a very diverse country. You have Turks, you have Kurds, you have Baluch. For example, in the Kurdish region also, there are a formidable political party who are armed. They are based in Iraqi Kurdistan and waiting for the situation if the security forces...
Israel is a tiny nation. 6 perfect missiles can starve the country by destroying important areas. You are insane and have no idea what you're talking about. I'm very sorry. You have no clue. I know we have a lot of war larpers out here who are like really opportunistically jumping on the hype train of Iran finally destroying Israel. It's not happening. It's not happening.
Create that environment for what Israel and
America are in charge. If Iran poses a long-term threat, it will be in insurgency, not in their
whenever they feel
missiles.
Their existence is in danger, they do not hesitate to shoot. That's what they have done so far, and we know there are tens of thousands of security forces who are still loyal to government. We haven't seen much defection from them. We have to wait and see whether how many of those people who are in the security forces, they say, you know what, the end is coming, it's the right time for us to save ourselves and our families and leave the regime. So far, we have not seen that.
And just talk to us about how the government...
The person you keep responding to lives in Israel Amal? Wait, really? Okay. Gotcha. Cool.
Missiles being launched from Iran towards Israel. You have the IRGC, you have the president, Pezeshkian, you have the Ayatollah. Just give us a sense of how the elites in Iran will be reacting to this.
Obviously, what we have been hearing from Iranian officials, so far we haven't heard anything from the Supreme Leader or President Pezeshkian. As I said a minute ago, his deputy, the chief of staff, he said he's alive.
They're Palestinian Israeli, okay? There are still some of those. Bombing sounds? Nah.
Are able to using those weapons in their hands. I mean, we know for fact the videos we have seen, Iran's Supreme Leader office has been attacked. We know they were expecting Iran might be attacked. Most definitely, they have removed him from there. He must be in a safe place. It's the question whether Israeli or American know about his whereabouts. But also the President Pezeshkian, as I said, in Pastor Street, which the presidential...
Their ability to overwhelm the Iron Dome doesn't necessarily translate into their ability to do anything. Like randomly striking targets with missiles and facing no consequences for it are privileges reserved exclusively for America and Israel. So Iran gets through the Iron Dome and what? Hits a few people? Kills a couple hundred? What actually happens? What changes? Nothing. Israel and America have the ability to dismantle Iran's military because we're, America and Israel. Iran can't do that to Israel or certainly not to America. They don't really have the ability to fight back. They just don't. They could do a big wave and hurt people. I'm not arguing that. I feel like a lot of people are getting their hopes up for some kind of big Iranian counterattack that's going to show us what for. They could do some real damage on American bases for sure, but I just don't think it's going to be. We are very sensitive to our casualties, so.
He talked about bringing about regime change, urging the people of Iran to rise up, saying that this was their best opportunity in generations. He called on members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard to lay down their weapons or face certain death. And he described the Iranian regime as one that could never be allowed to access or develop nuclear weapons. And that address, as I say, from his home.
What would happen in the event of American deaths? Trump actually anticipated American deaths in his speech, which I was surprised by. Seems like an unnecessary preemptive concession. No, not really sure. I don't know. Kind of depends on the circumstances, I suppose. They could force Trump into a ground invasion by focusing their whole military power on U.S. bases. I don't think that would force us into a ground invasion. I don't think we're doing a ground invasion.
Warned them of the possibility of American casualties as an element of war, he said. So it does remain to be seen how long this conflict will go on, what sort of retaliation Iran might now decide to meter out. And of course, that could all depend on what was targeted in these joint strikes by Israel and the United States. Were they looking to bring about regime change with these strikes? As I say, the retaliation, the level of retaliation could very much depend on what has been hit and who has been hit.
Have we had much reaction?
That have
fuck you
to this in the US? Of course, it's the middle of the night there. But what are Americans likely to make of this, including the president's own base, who are America First Americans who are anti-war.
Congress should have to approve this.
There are
Ha!
critics
We don't do that
even
anymore.
within Donald Trump's own party.
Nice try,
of
old man. The
course.
future is now.
Congressman Thomas Massey, who has been a critic of Donald Trump's, said, posting on social media, act of
Please
war
pay Sweet Home
unauthorized by
Yerushalayim.
Congress. That was how.
Our official battle anthem going into Operation Epic Fury.
Begin anew. We all have come to help Hatzalah.
This is what we got blasting out of the Blackhawks as they swoop low over Tehran.
Based right here in God's holy city. Throughout this land, it's saving lives. Sweet home Yerushalayim. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so good. I'm sorry.
He carried.
When we are instructed to do so. And the atmosphere appears to be resigned. Our politicians have already made it clear that no sort of critical political discourse is allowed at this stage. The head of the parliamentary opposition has declared that there is no coalition or opposition. And I would say, I think safely, that most Israeli Jews see themselves as very much in support of Israel's government and Israel's attacks in Iran.
That is certainly true.
The only ones who we didn't have a clear picture from whether they are going to be part of this are Hezbollah in Lebanon.
All right, we will keep a close eye on that, of course. Let's further analyze these latest developments now with Akiva Eldar, who's an Israeli political analyst in Tel Aviv, and also Muhannad Seloum from the Doha Institute of Graduate Studies joining us here in the studio. Akiva, let me come to you first and ask you about what Prime Minister Netanyahu has said and the case for war he made. Is it a convincing one? Will Israelis be convinced by what he said?
Well, Polly, I will do a spoiler. At the end of this round of escalation, Netanyahu will declare victory, which he was not able to do.
What does victory look like for Israel today?
Exactly. He put the threshold much higher than he did in the previous round of escalation. Now he is promising a regime change, and he is the angel who will save the Iranian people from their evil regime, as President Trump said. But I am quite sure that the Israelis, and this is about 50% of the Jewish population, don't take him seriously. He wasn't able to declare victory after the massacre in Gaza and the thousands of victims in Israel. There are still people.
I think if Iran carried out terror attacks within the U.S., it would pressure us to stop pretty quickly. I promise you that it wouldn't. Historically, terror attacks in the U.S. have not been good at demotivating us to engage in military action in the Middle East. Also, if any terror attacks happen in the United States following this, you can blame Mossad. Just assume that it's a false flag. No need to think about it. Sweet home, Yerushalayim.
Soaked the earth with blood and guts. And it was Iran's prevail.
They're just playing this on loop.
Prime Minister Netanyahu followed suit, claimed that this was an operation aimed at regime change.
They're hitting Lebanon too? Yeah, of course, because the goal is like infinite war all around. Yeah, I mean, why not, right? You attack Iran, why not attack? It's all the enemy to them. Thoughts on this theory as to why we're attacking now? Working on a theory that U.S. interventionism in the Middle East is correlated to 11-year solar cycle of sunspot activity. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
they were creating an opportunity for the Iranian people to take their future into their hands. I think that before long, Donald Trump's patrons in the Middle East will make him see that he is doing nothing for the stability of the region or for his own regime, for that matter. And I doubt very much whether Israel is obligated in any way to the future of the Iranian people. Israel needs a war to get at least one win because it appears to be losing all other wars.
But can you not see the benefits for Israeli security? The Islamic Republic, the current Iranian government, has supported a lot of groups in the region that have targeted Israel, including Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah. So potentially, if that regime was to be removed, it would change a lot of dynamics for Israel in the region.
Oh, very true, but nobody's assured in any way that this regime, that the Islamic Republic will indeed be removed. And the instability that would be created in Iran, which is potentially a much more serious agent of chaos when it is engulfed in domestic chaos, that potential is very much there. I doubt anyone in the region is seriously committed to a long-term campaign.
Have you heard the U.S.-Iran peace talks were almost successful? There was never a timeline in which these talks were successful. You know what we did the last time there were talks? We interrupted them to bomb their nuclear facilities. You know what happened this time? We bombed them again. The talks will never, ever be successful. Iran shouldn't even bother engaging in diplomacy with us.
In the north, that
it's in its
interest.
Is it
a U.S.-led operation? Well, obviously the U.S. is a powerful, but the Israelis surely must have convinced them and must have had a big role in this as well.
Well, obviously, they have
behind
been,
it. Well,
yeah, they have been trying to do this, and Netanyahu went himself to D.C. Trying to convince President Trump to do that. But it is the U.S. doing this. Israel on its own cannot change the regime in Iran. It is the U.S. Army doing this, and also the U.S. have been very much intentional with this. They have moved in. This armada of carriers, F-22s, everything, and they are attacking Iran as we speak now.
Right, but what imminent threat did Iran pose to the U.S. for the U.S. to attack it in this way? This is what President Trump said in his speech, that Iran posed an imminent threat. What was the threat?
Well, they haven't laid that bare out there, but they're saying that
I think Huckabee really gave the game away in his interview with Tucker Carlson, where Huckabee kept saying that Iran poses a threat to us and our borders would be safer. Huckabee kept speaking as though he was an envoy of the Israeli government, when he is, of course, an envoy of the American government, you know? He wasn't advocating for America to protect Israel's interests because Israel's an ally. He was just referring to both of them indiscriminately. Bahrain's been hit, supposedly? Not surprising.
With different U.S. administrations trying to find a middle ground and a solution, but it never happened. Now the U.S. is reaching the last limit, especially with, the zero game, if you like, ideas of President Trump, saying that you have to give up on everything. We will not accept anything below that. And Iran is saying that it's more dangerous to give up everything than go into war. So the Iranians went for war because it's less costly for them than giving up on their nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles.
Akiva Eldar in Tel Aviv, what about the costs for Israel? In the last few years, Israel has been engaged in a war in Gaza, a genocide in Gaza. It's been engaged in a war against Hezbollah in Lebanon, twice now against Iran. Isn't this costing Israel and the Israelis as well?
It's okay. We're there to bail them out.
Yeah, it costs not only financially, with its billions of dollars. Maybe Netanyahu is hoping that his friend over there, White House, that is not very eager to spend money on other countries or other people. Maybe he believes that he will be also able to convince him to pay those bills. But more than that, you look at the Israeli people, the average Israeli is depressed. He doesn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. The only tunnels we know is the tunnels in Gaza that we destroyed.
Funny.
People are stuck at home. They are not able. Israel is becoming an isolated island more than before. And I think the psychological effect at least 1/3 of the Israelis, according to research that has been done in the United States, are in a kind of post-trauma. And I see my grandchildren, I see my neighbors, people going with their heads down. They don't see any end to this. And Netanyahu, as we know, his hero is Winston Churchill. What he's promising us is just blood, sweat, and tears.
Dude, has this guy been watching my streams? I like this guy.
I think that the Israeli economy can deal with it. But what is happening is that in Israel, for the first time this year, we have negative immigration. Good people are leaving the country. But I want to go for a minute to the message of Netanyahu that he wants to put order in the Middle East, new Middle East. What we see is that when the Palestinian Authority
and
the Peace Council is willing to put order in Gaza, Netanyahu is doing everything to undermine it. And if he was willing to move, maybe it would isolate Iran further and maybe bring the regime down.
Okay, Akiva, just to bring our viewers up to speed with what's been happening, if they're just joining us now, it's just past 9 GMT. And our continuing coverage of this breaking news story, the US and Israel are attacking Iran just days after representatives from Tehran and Washington held indirect negotiations in Geneva. Explosions have been heard in northern...
Aftermaths of strikes in Tehran. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if this is that. In fact, I'm pretty confident that it's not. You can't just pitch random Twitter videos. People, it's the Syrian civil war. It's got to be the Syrian civil war or Gaza. I don't think this is not Tehran. It's ARMA footage, okay?
Israel as the military there intercepts incoming Iranian missiles. And in just the last few minutes...
Maybe it is. I just need better info to work with.
Saying that an Iranian missile has been intercepted by the Patriot defense system. And there are also reports of explosions in Bahrain. Now, the attacks in Iran, the Iranian capital, are part of what the United States are calling Operation Epic Fury, and they're taking place across cities in Iran. Iran has closed its airspace and cut mobile phone services. Now, video shows a low-flying fighter jet in the skies over the Iranian capital a short while ago, and Iranians have been hearing the sounds of jets and explosions throughout Saturday morning.
Photos of explosions in Bahrain. Just getting silly with it.
The Iranian retaliation started. It started with the first barrage, at least 2 barrages towards Israel. Now we're hearing of the interception over Qatar and in Bahrain. And this actually reflects what the Iranians have been saying over the past weeks regarding the retaliation to any war on them or any attack on them. But this is just turning this whole conflict into a regional conflict.
Yeah, because the Iranians have said that all U.S. assets in this region are a legitimate target, even if the countries are allies.
We'll see if they actually do it. I don't want to stay up for too long because you know what I have to do when I wake up? Cover more of this. So I am going to wrap things up with a summary, and then you guys can go back to watching, I don't know, whatever psychotic, NAFO, bloodthirsty death feed you care for. The summary is this, okay? I've talked at length. The real question is, like, moving forward, what are the objectives of the United States and Israel, and what will they be satisfied with? I don't think Trump wants a prolonged war. Clearly, the framing here is that this is being done to carve out an opening for regime change. I'd be very surprised if that regime change could actually happen. I really, really do not think that what we're doing right now is going to open up a meaningful opportunity. If it does open an opportunity, I'm not going to shed any tears over the death of the Ayatollah or the fall of the Iranian regime, because they're very evil people. But historically, this kind of action has led to destabilization in the Middle East, which has led to larger problems down the line. So, you know, we'll see. I don't know what they're going to be satisfied with, though, because I really do believe that Israel is just they just want death. So like what stability could you really go for here? You know? I don't know. I don't see it. I have no idea. Even if they succeeded in achieving a regime change, that wouldn't change the fact that Israel wants these people dead, you know? Technically, Iran is not in the borders of greater Israel, but it's not like that would stop them, you know? So I have no idea. I really, really, truly don't. Anyway, I'm going to get some sleep, and presumably tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up to a fresh wave of bullshit. So we'll cover that as we can. Please take care, everyone. Good luck. Godspeed. And I think I'm going to unprivate this VOD or unlist. I'm going to relist this VOD so it can just stand as a video, because I'm not going to pitch anything in my editors right now. They're both asleep. Everyone take care. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Good luck. And yeah, if you're in Iran, take cover, I guess. I don't know. It's pretty bad out there. Pretty bad out there. I'll read donos tomorrow, by the way.